drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
We give you an opportunity to do life again. Every night you go to bed and you dream. But God was wise. He wakes up to start the journey of achieving our dreams. Welcome to Good Morning Uganda, your current affairs show on UBC TV. Every weekday, we make it a point that we begin your morning, and our main agenda is to ensure that you're well versed with what is happening locally and internationally. Now, we began the 42 days of the lockdown, and we just want to thank God that He's been faithful. Every day we are seeing more light at the end of the tunnel as we close to the end of the 42 days. Now 10 days remaining. Did you believe that at the beginning of this lockdown, after the President declared the 42 days, you would come this far? So it is that God that has seen you that far that is going to see you even through so many things. Every day we hear of new discoveries in the fight against COVID-19. Away from the ministry empowering our health facilities, more beds, more ICU, pushing for vaccination. We've seen. Last week we had COVID lice. This is what is coming from, that is Gulu University. And the President gave some money there to a tune of about 3.7. We have COVIDX, that is on market. And there is so much that we are coming up with day by day. But also, we saw PLE being released. That is amidst COVID-19. We still had candidates who passed with flying colors. Can you believe that for this time we had so many people in senior in P6 that sat for PLE? And surprisingly, many of these passed. But even amidst COVID-19, we registered a better performance 2020 compared to 2019. So what does this mean? That no matter the situation, there is always hope once you have a positive mindset and you're focused and you're determined to be a victor. I'm Kirabo Nyonyintono, and this is your current affairs show where we are ready to take you through what is happening globally and internationally. But don't forget, we'll also look at what is in the press review. We will also have an opportunity to take you more regarding the soaps. The days could be expiring. We don't know if we shall have more, or we are going to have more sectors highlighted, or they are going to lock more sectors again. But one thing that is clear, the soaps remain. So even today, as you head to your destination, if you're not fit to be on the road in terms of accreditation, do not hit the road. But later on in this program, we shall have the Deputy RCC in charge of Nakawa, Anderson Wurora, with whom we'll be discussing so much regarding soaps and implementation. But I don't do this alone. I do it with a team. And my sister Priscilla, my brother Felix are doing all it takes to join and have us with more information. Over to you, Priscilla and Felix Nkunda.
Well, thank you so much, Robert, and good morning to you guys. So happy to be here in the weeks that you have mentioned. Now, we have 165 days to the 31st of December 2021, so that should be observed for we have moved 2022. Yeah, that would be 2022.
Clearly stuck in 2021. But of course, it is a total happiness. We've fast-tracked towards more or less the evening parts of this year, and we already passed media. Today being the 18th?
Today is the 19th, so which leaves us with 12 days to the end of lockdown. This is not even July, this is lockdown. So we have January, February, March, April, May, June, lockdown, August, September, depending on how Mr. President responds at the end of this lockdown.
But the funny thing is that you're talking about January, February, March, those were still lockdowns. You just had to go lockdown, one lockdown, then when you reach July, like July, like maybe had a lockdown. don't know, like how you say hardest. So we hope we don't go to the.
Yeah, there's now there's someone who else will come through with hardara. You know, Pierre leaders came out.
Oh yeah.
If you were to mark papers, I'm pretty sure it was quite hilarious.
Trust me, you don't know the experience
in terms of
marking
English
papers.
and writing.
You don't know the experience about exams. If you ever get a chance to mark people's exams, you'll be there wondering.
I know.
And actually,
yes,
you can
have
tell.
That experience, by the way.
You can tell everyone's background and family by the kind of exam they write.
It also gives you a picture into the education system.
Definitely.
From the
definitely,
grassroots.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. We also do have 5 days to the Olympics in Tokyo that are kicking off on the 23rd. So basically, July seems to be colorful of things to look forward to, if we can call it that. My name is Priscilla Naloga, and good morning to you once again.
And of course, my name is Felix Nkunda, and I can't be more glad to be here on set with Priscilla, or what you want to call Nali. So how have you been, Nali?
I have been fantastic.
I must say I love your blazer. Is it a blazer, jacket,
it's a blazer.
cardigan, or?
No, cardigan would have to have that woolen thread. Yeah, you're the one who taught us those things.
Yeah, sometimes I
Chef
check
Felix.
you.
To make sure the student learned. Okay.
So there's something that is quite also hilarious, and Kirabo did touch a bit on it about these whole developments of a couple of medicines for coronavirus. Previously, I think about a month and so, we saw Mbara University's professor come out to make something called COVIDX. We've had tremendous feedback about it, and people have given good testimonies about how much it can do. Now,
how much they're benefiting from it also.
Exactly. And it is entirely respective. Every person will come out to tell you their own story, how it helped. I have been privileged. I used it once just to be sure, but I think it's very strong. Though I didn't have COVID or something, but I couldn't use a drop of it.
So is it one of those treatments, you know, African herbal medicines?
It is.
When you take it, you have to
definitely trust me.
You have to hold someone's hand.
It's worse than that because it does to go through the nose.
Yeah.
Now you
also
know what
the
it means.
Effects, the nasal
anything
impact.
that goes into the nose. Now then, Gulu comes out also to do is it Covislin or something like that, and I'm thinking, is this what the president was promising all along?
I think this is what the president was
kept on talking about
when we had that Nyonyintono meeting.
Oh yeah.
You know, considering Africa and as far as
African
medicine solutions are concerned, this is now the time, and I'm glad that people have not had to wait on government and on the president. They were already responding in the different communities and facets to be able to find solutions as we wait on the beds, as we wait on oxygen cylinders, as we wait on COVID money, as we wait on Nabanja money. You know, people have found a way to...
That would be another topic.
People have found a way to actually cope with COVID-19, which is a positive. Now, the better positive is the fact that now, on government level, it's being recognized as something that is worth an investment in. And I'm glad that it's a continuous conversation on the president's lips. Right from his inauguration, he has been saying that investment in terms of pharmaceuticals, innovations, we need to put money there. So it's good.
So I'm thinking I want to sort of like call for a meeting with these guys of Gulu and Barara. And I want us to discuss about the naming of their product. I have read about medicine for quite a good time. By the way, I must say, I did attempts to be in biomedical school. For about 6 months before I left. But most of the developments in medicine are normally named after the people who invent them. Now, I'm imagining this drug by Mbara's professor or Mbara University, Ogwang. Wouldn't it be better to call it maybe Ogwang Dex, like Mbara City, like Gulu? Like Gulu is coming up with, is it Covislin?
It's Covislin, yes.
Because the sense of ownership is what promotes research for the entire world.
Okay.
Like you've seen medicines developed in Delhi or Uttar Pradesh, they have that resemblance that it's the only way to market that area in terms of that sort of innovation. So I'm thinking we must restructure the name.
Okay, so I think this
like
is where
COVIDX.
We would have to engage
like
Dr. Musenero or Dr. Mario Musi. Because No, from the conversations I've been hearing, especially from the medical field, is that the grouping matters before the naming. So the grouping of COVID is in a group of flus, different viruses.
Yeah, the family of
viruses.
Yeah,
so then in the family of viruses, if you notice, there's a relationship between Covidex and Covicillin and the foreign drugs that are on the
guess
market.
What? There's no relationship between AstraZeneca, Oxford, Johnson & Johnson. Now, all of them, remember, they're also for COVID.
Are you trying to say that Johnson & Johnson was done by a guy called Johnson & Johnson?
No, it's done by the company. It's called Johnson & Johnson. That's the thing. AstraZeneca is
okay, so if you're going by a company and you're a lawyer yourself, you have to separate the entity, the product, and the person.
But there's only one way for us to give credit. If cognizance also comes from the manufacturer or the developer.
Yeah, but
now here's the thing. That's why Johnson & Johnson didn't name its drug like Covicillin what, but it's
but you see those details are given on the packaging. Produced, manufactured by, and then if they need be,
who's there to read?
Developed by.
For example,
you see, pharmaceuticals, when they're buying these things, they have to put that into consideration. As the end user, we just need a solution, and that's all. Whether it's produced by who, developed by
this Covicillin from Gulu called Gulucillin or Marara, something like this.
Oh, Gulucillin.
Exactly.
That's what you're meaning.
Oh, Uganda.
It's a university. It's not really a pharmaceutical farm.
It's in Gulu.
Yeah, but it's
well, what do people in Gulu?
Right, this debate may not have a solution to it, but there's been a couple of stories that have happened in the last 24 hours. And of course, the peak of it all is the fact that PLE and its students have actually gotten their results back. It's been a long time waiting. It's been a long journey, but that's a conversation that we're going to be having on our newsreel this Monday morning. But looking at some of the stories that have been in the last 24 to 48 hours, starting off with the fact that there are no services, there's no church, it's under lockdown, but from the Christians who have been asked to remain steadfast by following in the path of the biblical teachings despite the hardships they are facing, especially now with COVID-19 induced lockdown. The Archbishop of Uganda, that is Right Reverend Stephen Samuel Kazimba, said a lot of temptations remain manifesting, but this should not mislead believers to veer from the teachings of the Most High. This was during a Sunday service that was exclusively held in strict observance of the SOPs at Namirembe Cathedral. Due to the ongoing lockdown, church services remain exclusive to a few except those attending via different social media platforms. And yesterday at Namirembe and Rubaga Cathedral services, they had a handful of attendants, mainly spiritual leaders and choir members. We get to look at victims of River Nyamwamba floods having criticized their leaders for neglecting them in times of hardship. Over 70 residents of Nyohogo cell in Nyamwamba division are currently camped at Kasese Humanist School with no significant help from stakeholders. According to the head of the victims, Chisiku Mustafa, says they have no food that has so far come to them. He also says that even their members of parliament have not bothered to check in on them. An 81-year-old woman whose crops and house were washed away by floods says some COVID-19 relief fund from government would bail her out even if. We also have Michael Adrian, who is also camping at the same school, saying he is facing a challenge of his grandson's demands for food all the time. A concerned resident of Kasese municipality, Basise Brian, says government needs to work closely with Glembe Mines Limited, a company that is good at controlling the river during the floodings. He also urged all people to move away from Nyamwamba riverbanks and desist from cultivating in the river valley. And finally, on the local scene, we get to look at gun-trotting military men raiding Uganda's side of Lake Albert and robbing Ugandan fishermen of fishing gear, including fishing nets and engines, mid-last week. Now, Chikube LC5 Vice Chairperson Vincent Alpha Opio wants the government to immediately investigate and come up with a comprehensive report and also find out the motive of the persistent attacks. Christopher Nkalu, the Chikube District Council Speaker, says that the attacks have left the fishermen with no source of income. He also says the district is set to petition the Ministers of Defense and Internal Affairs, respectively, over the rampant attacks. A fisherman at Bugoma landing site, Abdallah Sentongo, wonders why security operatives deployed along the shores of Lake Albert cannot protect fishermen from attacks. And this has been happening since 2018 to date and has put the lives of Ugandan fishermen on Lake Albert in a lot of danger. I believe it has. When you look at the fact that over the past 2 years, actually, you've had a lot of deployment of military on the lake shores of Uganda, the different lakes where people actually make a living in terms of fish, and you see these continuous things happening, you then ask yourself, who is not doing their job, especially in a lockdown?
Well, the question is how much can be done? You see, water incidents are quite tricky away from land. Now, you must have some good investment to deal with marine and all this kind of thing. But we hope the UPDF is interested. We really hope that they do come on top of this whole thing.
All right. So on the international scene, there's been a lot of things that have come out of the weekend.
Yeah.
Which of those are your picks for today?
Definitely, of course, we'll be looking at Germany, South Africa, but of course, I'm not forgetting to look at the US as well.
Okay.
And I will pick it up from Germany, where we'll be looking at Germany floods. Marco describes German floods devastation as terrifying and most horrible. Now, German Chancellor Angela Merkel has also described the flooding that ravaged parts of the country as surreal and terrifying, as the death toll from the floods in Western Europe climbed above 180, with dozens still missing. Now, Merkel promised on Sunday swift financial aid after visiting one of the areas worst affected by the record rainfall and floods that have killed at least 157 people in Germany alone in recent days, in the country's worst natural disaster in almost 6 decades. Now, it's terrifying. She came out to make mention and say that residents of a small town in Adunu, state of Rhineland, and she mentioned that German language can barely describe the devastation that's taken place. Now, Germany is a strong country. Marco said, we will stand up to this force of nature in short term, but also in the medium and the long term. Now, do cross over to England, where we see 19th July, England COVID restrictions ease as Prime Minister urges caution. Now, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has urged caution as most legal restrictions on social contact lifted in the UK. Now, there are now no limits on how many people can meet or attend events. Nightclubs can reopen, and table service will not be necessary in pubs and restaurants. A face covering will be recommended in some spaces but not required by law. But the PM also made mention that Chancellor and the Health Secretary are self-isolating. There are warning cases will surge. Now, some scientists also predicting that the UK infection, currently at about 50,000 a day, could reach 200,000 a day later in the summer. But with more than at least 68% of UK adults fully vaccinated, modeling suggests hospitals admissions, serious illnesses and deaths from COVID-19 will be at a lower level than the earlier peak. Crossing back to Africa, looking at South Africa, where we see Ramaphosa calls for unity amid a wreckage of unrest. Now, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has joined post-riot clean-up efforts that his government warned against vigilantism and sought to avert racial conflict following days of unrest. The country was ripped by more than a week of chaos in which more than 200 people were killed as looters ransacked shopping centers and rioters rushed key industrial infrastructure and blocked trade routes. Now, the violence was the worst post-apartheid South African and was sparked after former President Jacob Zuma was sentenced to 15 months in jail on the 8th of July for snubbing a corruption inquiry. Now, the protest widened into grievances over long-standing poverty and inequality. Now, his trial for corruption is in separate case is due to resume on Monday. On Sunday, Ramaphosa, who faced criticism over the response to the violence, told a crowd outside a mall in Soweto Township, "We all admit there were lapses. We will gather ourselves and do a proper review in the same spirit." Well, clearly the spirit in South Africa is much calm.
You actually spoke of the spirit, and when you were reading the story, it sort of brought something to life in terms because of character of the country, characteristics of the country. Now the way South Africans respond is very aggressive. It's very passionate. And they go all the way to start what
in particular Doubting and KwaZulu, you will be surprised that the biggest problem of this country is the difference between the habits. And that's why you see these reactions that for any opportunity that presents, they will take on the matter. Every opportunity, even if an accident was there, the first thing, because there's a big gap. Now, these people have the rich hate the poor, and the poor hate the rich. Now, these things you see on the streets, the looting, the breaking, the poor people are like saying it's paper. Because they don't be a Muslim, they want to break it because and this is what the proposal is dealing with. Amidst, of course, tribal.
COVID-19 was a big
talk about that.
So while they were having that already, and now with all this is happening, I'm pretty sure the next thing we're going to be hearing is COVID-19, considering what has happened to them. But nevertheless, we've got to smile.
Smiling, keep smiling, you need it. It's good therapy for you after this COVID-19, and what better way is it for us to do if you or start your weekend with Cap Franklin? Let's take a break, have a song of the day. When we come back, we'll see that program. And this is what we'll be talking about. PL Reasons.
if there is anything that people need at such a time, is a smile. One person said that a smile is very, very expensive because it heals, it relaxes the mind. So wherever you are, there are certain things that cannot have monetary value attached to them, but actually they mean a lot. What if you just choose to give a smile to someone this very morning? You never know. Maybe they would open up because you've showed a gesture of kindness and openness and welcome. So that is one of the things we can do at a time like this of COVID-19. But we thank the Lord that we've moved so far. And among the things we've been able to have, that is in the education sector, we saw the release of primary leaving examinations. And guess what? This time, there was a better performance compared to previous year. Candidates performed better compared to 2019. Remember, it was in March 2020 when COVID hit. So this is a class that was disrupted in one way or the other. But at the end of the day, we saw 659,910 candidates pass PLE compared to 617,150 that did the previous year. So I think this is a step in the right direction. However, if you are to look at subjects that were not done as expected, mathematics was this time poorly done compared to the previous year. But these and more are what we're going to be discussing, I, Felix, and Priscilla. Now, Priscilla, before even we go into the results, I just want you to take us down the memory line. What was it like, PLE, receiving results, then, the family is expecting a candidate. What was your experience like?
Okay. Well, as you've said this, basing on the background of the song of the day, smile. I know lots of parents are currently smiling that one, the results are back, two, that primary level is done and dusted. The expectations of what next still lie in limbo right now. And for me personally, we did have a candidate in the family, and he performed very well. So congratulations to you, Lael. Thank you so much for putting in your very best, and surely the God has blessed him with good results. So we're happy for him. Down memory lane, when we go down memory lane, my time of having PLE, I will say, I think for me, the more nerve-wracking time was even mocks than PLE. You know, the mocks that you do, the last set of mocks that you do before primary leaving examinations. Now, that particular mock, the school administration created the PLE environment. No one in school, so the rest of the classes actually had the 2 days off. So we were in an empty school, only asked the candidates, then we did mocks. So that hit me like, oh wow, this is what it's going to be like. So by the time we actually got to sit for PLE, we had that experience. So the nerves were a bit calmer. We went through PLE just 2 days. It was a nice experience. And then the expectation was you're going to go for a very long holiday. However, at the end of that holiday, when you have done and asked for everything you want, when the results come back, you start to sweat and you're thinking, oh, how did I perform? Yeah, but by God's grace, I performed very well, and I was very happy. And I went to the school of my choice, so it was quite an exciting time.
Nkunda, looking at this time around, this has been one of the classes.
My experience.
This has been one.
Segregating.
Okay. Due to public demand. Let me get Felix's experience when the results return.
I got 4. You don't want me to talk about it on TV? Kirabo.
Feel free.
Shimoni, my school.
Okay. Also now you have Kingdom Hotels.
That's what I'm talking about. So we evolve.
So the school evolved into a hotel.
Exactly. Growth is good.
You're adding to investment in this country and the economy.
My point has been taken, the 4 point. So we can go on. You are saying?
Very interesting. Sometimes I wonder when Felix is driving around town and has to show his daughter which school he attended, P7, and they're like, Daddy, you must have been studying in a posh school.
Yeah.
Because this is a storied, and I know Felix cannot say, well, the school was a resident. It is a hotel. He'll still brag. Yes, that was my primary school. But that day she finds out that is a hotel and no longer a school. I don't know. Daddy, you are. So, Felix, just to get back, this is one of the most this class was disorganized a bit because of COVID-19. And at the end of the day, still we see good performance. Yes, there was a reduction in distinctions, but overall performance was very impressive and better than that of 2019. Looking at these results, Felix, we see, of course, we have a change of those who missed, yet they had registered for many reasons, maybe. And what is interesting is mathematics. One of the sciences that we call for at primary level was still poorly done.
No, I must say, I must congratulate all of the guys who were able to do the exams, and those who did pass, because these exams are not our normal way of life. It would be very, actually, for me, in my opinion, I was talking to a parent, I'm like, this would be a wrong judgment for us even to use these as yardsticks of who failed or who didn't. It's unfortunate many of the students didn't do the exams. It's very unfortunate, and we don't take that lightly. I know for a fact that the education system in this country will never be the same after COVID, or even amidst COVID. Things have changed tremendously. For example, even the things we study may never be the same, because I want to believe that people who did PLE didn't cover the whole syllabus. They only picked out the most relevant. Kids who are studying on TV, were studying online, were studying on Zoom, and all these things. So it is hard for us to make a true judgment of how their preparation was. I have had allegations that most of the schools also sat people of P4 and P5 and P6 into P7. They used this opportunity, and the kids passed. That has caused excitement in some families. However, what is the plan? The exams are out. People could have passed. I saw people's schools, and all that. The question is, what's next? What next? The people who are in S1 are still in S1.
For the second year. Please note.
So, what's the plan? And releasing exams, with due respect to the Ministry of Education or government entirely, is a success. I think, let me use this Anglophone language, it is a useless success at this time. You get the point? It's like, Kirabo, you coming to celebrate your neighbor's pregnancy. Your wife will look at you saying, take it. Oh, you have and the question is, what's in for you? Like, if we have not yet prepared an open end to this success, it's as good as nothing. That's why I'm asking, what next?
In terms of continuity.
Now, we've been in this position for the last almost 2 years, and we have no solution. It's not just enough for us to celebrate PLE. Hey, so what? Previously, 4 or 5 years ago, the excitement would be trickled into, she talked about, people will be putting in St. Mary's, Budo, Gayazana, Bisunsa. You know, the schools, everyone was thinking they're a big deal around here, yet actually that was also a wrong perception. It has no relationship with actually life. There's no relationship.
Don't open
except for the Old Boys Association.
I am telling you, and that's the problem, that also that in its own self doesn't create opportunity. It can only create...
Yes. So
it doesn't create opportunity to the larger
to the larger of it. It is just a pride thing.
Just individual.
That I relate with a Kirabo who's a TV worker, is on the show. That is satisfaction. I am a,
and
you know,
the ones
I'm
that
a
are
nanny, and those names
do have something to look forward to.
Exactly.
Like,
and that's all it can be.
And it came from our school. We can also look forward to.
And that's all it can be. Because I don't want to attack, but that's not attacking. That's for me, my perception, that it can keep that for another day.
So,
but what I'm saying, let me just say this lastly, Robert, about this matter. It's not good enough for us to celebrate PLE in as much as it's a good thing. That's why I talked about a a hopeless celebration. That in as much as we are celebrating, what's the hope after it? With all the challenges we have. In a country where you have teachers who have quit their jobs, and at all levels, from lecturers, high school to primary, they are leaving the profession. Okay? Secondly, we are looking at schools closing into lodges, inns, restaurants, and all that. You get the point. Now, we are looking at a system where students are pregnant. Some of them have received their results in labor wards. I don't know if you look.
I agree with
so
you.
we are in state of
cases.
successful hopelessness, if I may put it that way. That in as much as we celebrate, but we are hopeless with our success. You get the point. That's what I'm saying. You're celebrating your neighbor's pregnancy. What is in for you? It is a hopeless celebration because omwana going to zara tewagenda mutu machirabo siwa chikacho. But you get, so that's the place. It's beautiful. It's sweet sour pain.
You can only celebrate when the neighbor's child, the pregnancy is yours, but since it is not yours, then there is no reason
That's just an example,
to celebrate Felix's example. But Priscilla, Felix talks about that it seems like there is no light at the end of that tunnel. And we must accept that, yes, COVID brought the world to its knees. There are so many complications. And one of the ways is to fight congestion. And you know, our schools, once you open schools, there is congestion. But what are the alternatives? Can we have continuity? Can we have continuity? Because at the end of the day, if you're going to have senior 6 sit the results released, senior 4 results released, PLE now was also released. So what you're going to have is, yes, people that have good grades, but they don't have where to continue. So how best can we? The government has tried to push for ICT, then this, but all seemingly only for those that are continuing in their classes, not those that are joining new classes.
Okay, all right. I'm going to first look at this in terms of the education framework. When you look at the education framework, as Felix was rightfully put it, hopeless success, because it's supposed to have that continuity. But I do hear what he's saying, but we cannot call it hopeless because either way, we still have to. The system has to continue. Whether this year, next year, or the other year, the system will still reboot and go back to starting point, and it will be back to normal eventually, which is what the ministry is having as a challenge right now. And honestly, we cannot put it on the ministry because this is the first of its kind that they're having to deal with. Last lockdown, they had to just, it was a directive, no schools on all levels are to be opened. So that meant that, okay, we're missing 1 year of that period, but then everyone will go back into order. That was the expectation. However, from the continuous addresses that we had, the ministry then had to consider, okay, if we are continuing with this lockdown, partial lockdown, let's consider that we have the candidates at least completing their year so that it's not a dead year or they don't have to go through this tension of a year again. And so the candidate classes are the ones that were allowed to open initially for the education system. And in my assessment, it was a hard decision, but it was a successful decision. Candidates P7, Senior 4, Senior 6 managed to sit for the examinations. And also the consideration that they had for the different categories, as he has mentioned them. It was put into, UNEP did put those considerations in there. And for the pregnant girls, they were given an extension of hours in terms of, the examination sittings and so many other considerations. Now, what we didn't all anticipate is that results have to come back and these kids have to go into the next class. That is the one thing that I think the ministry did not forecast, thinking
that, there could
that
be a
by the time,
wave.
I think if the last class sits in June, you will have in July, maybe August, first term for senior ones and things like that. So now the challenge is how do you amalgamate that commotion that is already present, because you have senior ones of 2000 being senior ones of 2020 being senior ones of 2021, and yet you have now incoming senior ones. So then the question is, how are they going to bridge the gap for one, not to have overcrowding, because COVID-19 SOPs, crowding is an issue. Now you do have some schools have tried to stay to the SOP side of adherence, meaning that they've had to lose students to other schools because they have to accommodate the numbers, which comes at a cost in terms of what they lose out, but also in the cost of the remaining parent. They have to then have, because the utilities are the same, the expenses are the same, those ones haven't changed. So now the parent has to pay more money for that to happen, which is a challenge in such a time as this, when we're in a total lockdown for until 31st of July, meaning that again, parents' income has been disturbed a little bit. Ways of getting money has been disturbed. So when we look at the challenge that lies ahead for the Ministry of Health, I believe that, I think one of the considerations that they're going to have to put is that maybe pause on the candidates that are supposed to continue their classes, and then have first sort out the current classes, empty them so that you can make room for the new ones. However, when you look at the reports that were coming out in terms of the registered number of candidates at the beginning of the year and those that actually sat at the end of the whole process, that number does not tally.
Well, I want to bring in Felix here. Felix, we know that we've had a number of countries that have also been hit by COVID-19. But one of the areas they have cherished and tried to have continuity is embracing technology. That is where we've seen some embrace Zoom, use all alternatives to ensure that there is continuity. How far can our country go when it comes to that?
Well, I think it's just about us changing our culture and perception towards the other alternatives available in terms of information. We need to accept, first and foremost, that we may have to live with challenges like this pandemic, not necessarily even COVID-19, with the challenges of poverty, because they pose the same challenges just like the pandemic. You know, you can imagine in terms of medical care, in terms of mobility, in terms of access to information. So we must accept that even away from just COVID, we must appreciate information technology or electronic means of transaction. In terms of how do you dissolve that in academics, to make sense out of academics, because it is not enough for us to introduce an activity to just pass time or to continue with a routine. Expo has to finish, P7 has to finish. They can't lose a year. We can't lose a year. It's not about losing a year. We must make meaning out of education to bring sense out of the kind of nation we want. Remember, the people of P7 will definitely be doctors the next 20 years. We know the next 20 years will be engineers. So it's incumbent on us together, government, the country, and all of the affiliated institutions, to make sense out of education. And for me, that's my biggest issue. That in as much as we are rushing to make things and catch up with time, because it seems like we are just want to catch up with time. No, we have a backlog. S1s have to. We are talking about creating space. Now, in that sort of approach, we may lose the purpose of education. The reason why I talked about the people, the allegations that we have had many people from P5, P6 sit these exams. Those are some of the challenges. Now, remember, education is progressive realization. It's progressive. Knowledge is cumulative. That's why you go through nursery, which is basically about you learning how to write and appreciating what. Now, you get it. What is the effect of people who have not learned? And I'm talking about learning in the sense of learning being advancing.
Well, Felix, one thing finally, please, that I want us to conclude with. Yes, Felix gave us an in-depth of it's not just about going through classes and completing, but quality must matter. But there is something I think it doesn't bring out very well. That is the area of ICT. because like we've seen, people in higher levels.
And let me help you that one. Hypothetically asking, if the ministry was to sit down and go the direction of ICT, okay, we have seen them adapting to radio programs, TV programs, and also print to be able to release some work for different classes to work on. Hypothetically speaking, if the ministry was to go the direction in terms of the senior ones and senior fours and yeah, I think senior one and senior fours, and do a program in that relation that they actually don't have to wait to start school. They can just buy these books and start studying from home. What would be your assessment of that decision?
You see, as a matter of fact, and education being a right in this country, and that's under the Constitution, that it must be put in position to be appreciated generally. That's why the government came out with the likes of PLE, rather UPE and USC, something like that. Because how much of that can be made available? That then would be the question. And they said more or less the same thing about ICT. How available and accessible is ICT to the country school lads or learners? Now, if we cannot answer that question, it's not a good priority for us. Okay? In terms of cost, in terms of usage, but in terms of also availability. You get the point. That it's not enough for us to talk about this discussion in the coverage of the metropolitan.
Yes.
Yes. We must discuss this in terms of the outskirts of the country, in Kisoro.
But don't we feel like the ministry is more or less been making decisions in regards to
the metropolitan?
Exactly.
Because you're talking about, just Robert, if I may conclude, and this is what, and the results you're looking at are a reflection of townships. Kirabo, between you and me, you know how many kids didn't sit for these exams. And who's talking about them? Who's talking about them?
And also, the regional imbalances in terms of performance.
The regional imbalance, really, that will never get.
So that would come into the, so if we did that, then that would mean that if we went in terms of ICT, then that gap's going to create more.
The question he's asking of who's asking about the kids that actually registered for these exams but did not actually sit for these examinations. And I remember the Minister of Education and Sports, we had her in her speech. She actually was calling for an investigative report to find out who are these category and what led to them not sitting an examination, and then how as a ministry can we help that provide a solution to this particular group of people. In response to ICT is a good initiative, but as long as we don't have cabling across Uganda, it does not benefit anyone.
Let me just add on what she's saying. Even in Kampala,
in a minute, please.
Electronic appreciation. Kampala, the capital, which is assumed to be the most up there.
As long as in East Africa we have the highest cost of bundles, that is not going to work out for us. So as long as we don't have appreciation of ICT facilities and equipment across the country.
What's the charge of internet?
That is it's a good initiative, but you see, it goes back to a conversation that Felix and I had some Friday back, and we were asking ourselves, there's I think a former minister of ICT or something, who committed on it in the next 2-3 years.
We would have free internet in some parts of Kampala.
Well, the
even
results,
if you go put on Wi-Fi right now,
there's only one area I know. There's one area I know actually in Kampala, and that is in Machindi. But I think this is not government. You will find youth around the the division headquarters.
There's Wi-Fi.
There's Wi-Fi.
They sit on the
show you the demand.
And
actually, what happened? Police reached a point of carrying out operations because before curfew, as late as 10, you find youth all surrounding because there is free Wi-Fi for them.
So what? Yeah.
If you want to know the power of it, look at how countries like Tanzania has grown very fast, Nigeria, the South Africa, and in terms of art education, there's a big difference. Read your research. That's the power of internet.
All we can say is the results are back. We want to congratulate those that passed with flying colors, and of course, not the end of the world in case you did not do as you expected. But one thing is clear, that we must advise means where education is not only where children are present in classes. We must ensure that there is continuity with classroom attendance or without. How do we do that? Can we embrace that is internet and other alternatives of studying outside classes? But that is a long journey. However, there is still hope. Where there is a will, there is always a way. When we return, we'll be looking at what is trending in our print media. Please stay with us.
Experience 100% 4G speeds across Uganda with the Airtel 4G Pocket Wi-Fi available at 123,000 shillings only. It comes with a backup battery and 15 GB free for 1 month. Visit the nearest Airtel shop, device selling shop or Airtel online shop. www.airtel.co.ug/broadband-discover. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Echa COVID-19 chijja kugwa. If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Airtel Uganda has the best and most affordable rates when it comes to withdrawing and sending money. Withdraw money for as low as 330 shillings up to a maximum of 12,500 shillings. Sending money is just as affordable as ever. Absolutely unbeatable. Use Airtel Money on the most affordable network with the largest network of Airtel Money branches in Uganda. Dial *185# to get started. Airtel Money. Simple, secure, borderless.
Kapo, you seem to be in a hurry. Where are you going to?
I'm gonna pay URA visit.
But you can access URA online. Why pay a visit?
To know more about the Kakasa Business Solutions, namely digital tracking solution, the voluntary disclosure program and electronic fiscal receipting and invoicing solution, which have turned my business around. You know I need to be on top of my game to protect my empire. If you know, you know.
I too need to know what Kapo knows.
Kakasa, be sure you are in charge of your business. Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Stories in the print media. Some are annoying, some are really bringing hope, but all the same is we are here to ensure you're well versed with what is happening, and it's time we look at both the New Vision, the Daily Monitor East African, and of course the Daily Nation. I'm beginning with the New Vision, where there is a very big headline there, that is best teachers. Yes, the people behind the success we've just talked about regarding PLE, where despite COVID-19 affecting learning, they still managed to see that the pupils performed better than 2019. Yet 2020 was the tough year there. And there are pictures of these teachers: Robert Nuwasasira Science MK Junior School, and a couple of them there. Thank you for the good work. Yes, these are patriotic people. And best schools by subject, the New Vision brings you that. Perere, I'll not mention, but there are a number. And which subject? There's a question here. I remember one time there's a school that said, you didn't mark us very well, and we are not seeing those S schools now in the dailies. We are wondering what happened. Still in the New Vision, if there are 5 pages of jobs and tenders for you there. Government to pay university debt. That is, government has agreed to pay the 15 billion debt that Busoga University owes various entities. Still, the New Vision brings you URA in record collection. So that is Uganda Revenue Authority. They are trying all it takes to ensure that they get the taxes for development of our country. Then you have Mbaguta series, grandson speaks out on wealth. Felix, what is in the Daily Monitor? Now in the Daily Monitor, POE star list of top schools per subject there, and COVID vaccine sold to city trader secretly. Now that is, what is the deal? Questions raised after Ministry of Health gives Ham Chigudi 2,000 doses of the scarce COVID-19 vaccine to immunize his tenants and workers. Barely 2 weeks after, businessman donated 30 million to bolster government's pandemic response. Well, that's for you and me to find out. But of course, a bit in COVID, testing for COVID was a tough decision. That is Malai and healthy living. How safe is it to hit the bar from gym? Well, the Lizard comes out to say it is a money talk economy. Harm health on the spot of COVID. Now, inside the Daily Monitor, Angela Merkel, German Chancellor, said yesterday that she was horrified by the surreal devastation of the floods. And Cyril Ramaphosa in South Africa, the South African president, joined the post-riot cleanup efforts there. And from the archives, street children rest in a shell of a truck in Katwe, that is in 1991. But also, today in history, Mwanga rebels defeated at Kabwoko battle and America bombs Rome, that is in 1943. In the battle against COVID, I begin with statistics where new confirmed cases are 460. Then new death, 38. And total deaths so far, 2,324. Once again, do not be part of these statistics. Just perfect those drills and ensure you desist from contracting COVID-19. Then myth or facts. We have Dr. Alfred Urware, that's Assistant Commissioner and Program Manager, Uganda National Expanded Program on Immunization, answering some of those tough questions. Should I wait for more effective vaccine? The answer is there for you. Now your Member of Parliament, we have Jacob Karubanga, that is MP Kibanda South. They give you more regarding him. And today in history, it was on this date and month, but the year 2011, when KCCA took over Nakawa Market, that is Kampala Capital City Authority. Still on the same date and month, but the year 1991, Mike Tyson accused of rape. That is former heavyweight boxing champion. Mike Tyson was accused of raping beauty pageant contestant Desiree Washington. That is Central Park Hotel. The New Vision still brings you more of that. Now in sports, in the Daily Monitor, now Cops make slow start at Sekafa title defense, and SC Villa makes strides amid fierce mourns, and loud wake-up call, that is for the Cops there, and of course questions about Magogo stealing the show, but also MP Julius Akon humbled by Olympians for life induction, and Afli punished 10-man chief to lift 10th crown, CAF watered down World Cup, but also holiday heroics put backs on brink of ending 50-year wait there. And in the New Vision Sport, they give you who make a 25-year, who are the Olympians here that Uganda has had. They give you those that have brought us medals in that sect. But also there is a free, that is Olympic guide for you in the New Vision. Then quarterfinals next. That is the Rugby Cranes doing us proud, and we hope they'll finally get there and be the eventual winners of this game that we are expecting so much. But also Olympics, yes, every day they draw closer, and also Uganda is set to ensure that victory returns home in the various disciplines that our teams will be participating in. But the new vision has more of that, and don't forget, also Ruben will be here to give the sports updates. Let's take a look at what the Daily Nation has for us.
The president hopes to leave a cohesive nation in line with the handshake. Now, why Uhuru faces a big dilemma, that is basically the big headline in the Daily Nation, and they give you an in-depth of that. But also, that is horror in the night, 13 killed in tanker tragedy. Much of that is what you will be getting or reading when you get yourself a copy of the Daily Nation, Daily Monitor, and the New Vision. Now, we cannot wait to have the traffic lady.
Let's also first take a look at what is in the East African, where we see Tanzania, that is reigns from Uhuru Ruto, that is bad blood. Of course, Kenya is heading for elections, and things are that way, as you're seeing. They're getting so much coverage regarding the East African area. But also see miners drifted to fight in, that is, and still we are seeing a Tanzanian president there. Let's proceed, and that is, okay, more of that in the paper there, but there is so much that is happening, and it's our role to ensure that you're well versed with what is happening locally, in the region, and the world at large when you make it a date with us every weekday. That is from 6:30 till the hour of 9. Priscilla is ready, the return of the traffic officer, and she'll be giving us some tips.
All right, just to take you through the East African, we have the headlines: Tanzania gains from Uhuru Ruto bad blood. We also get to look at Samia in Burundi there in Pictoria, and she is having a bonga, which is a new way of shaking hands across the states here with heads of state. We also get to look at miners drafted to fight in the Resit Tigray. That is an interesting story that has been continuous for months now, since towards the end of 2020. We also get to look at Dubai farm to lose Uganda fuel. Now, I know these fuel conversations are ongoing, and Uganda is setting themselves and preparing themselves for this long spell of fuel mining that will change the economy of not just Uganda, but East Africa as a whole. So that is how East Africa is looking like this morning. You can pick up a copy and get to know the rest of the details around Rwanda, Kenya, South Sudan, Uganda, and Burundi. But away from that, we want to see I know so many of you are choosing social media, most especially in the lockdown. You'd rather be in your bed and have your gadget to be able to catch up and follow up on Good Morning Uganda and the current affairs we bring you every single morning. Now, we do have Wakab Dax. Thank you so much for joining us on our Facebook live streaming. And we do have Fiona. Thank you so much. Charles Mwanguzi, thank you so much equally for streaming with us on Facebook. We get to look at a couple of reactions here on YouTube. We do have Joy Desire responding to PLE and the conversation that we have just been having in our newsreel. And Joy Desire says, yes, kids in P5, P4 and P6 also sat the PLE and passed, making me wonder about what was that, because child in P4, P5 and P6 work, which is a very good question mark. That inquires then into the setting of the PLE papers. Did they set them to consider P4, P5 and P6? I'm pretty sure, obviously, from the registration, the Ministry of Education did have an idea, because when you're registering, of course, you have to state how old this child is, the details, which then depict that probably this one is in P6 and P5 and P4. Now, in previous times, we've understood that, yeah, in P6, a child can actually attempt and pass favorably with a PLE. But now P5 and P4, it then questions how easy was this PLE paper. Perhaps me, Kirabo, and Felix can sit for the same paper and see how easy it was. Can we get 100 colors, or the flying colors that Robert called it? We don't know. Anyway, Joel Desire continues to say this is really going to affect them in secondary. Now, I don't know how that relates to secondary, because when you come to secondary, it's a completely different syllabus. First of all, the mathematics you did in primary is not the mathematics you would do in secondary. However, the basic principles, as long as you have the basic principles, then you can actually upgrade to secondary. What would you then, Joy Desire, say for people who do adult education? Adult education requires that, yeah, I missed senior 4, I can go back for a year, study everything, and then I get to sit for adult education papers. But then does that mean that I have to go back to primary and relate with the mathematics and the science and the SST and the English? No. But the principles is what we carried forward to be able to aid in further education. Another comment here saying we must work beyond protecting our officers and getting credits. That is in response to the conversation that we have been having on the newsreel. Well, for traffic, obviously we have 12 days to the end of this total lockdown of 42 days. Thereafter, we will find out from the presidential directive on which way we shall be going, and that is your traffic. So right now, I know you are home for the essential workers. Of course, they're on the road, and as of 9 a.m. is when you have the liberty to move to your next destination, your office, your workplace, and the likes. And then thereafter, yes, the offenders on the road, the police officers, traffic officers are going to be doing their job. Now, just make sure that first of all, your driving permit is up to date, and if it's not up to date, yes, that entity is open and you can go to railway just here on Ginger Road. You can be able to renew your permit or get a provisional for that matter in case you don't have a permit. That's very, very essential. Now more than ever, it is important that you carry your national ID. And I'm glad I recently heard that as far as national ID dispensation is going, it's going to be, put across different regions and put into local government so that it's easier for you to actually access and get your information in terms of the national ID, which is good. Same thing has been done for passports. They have been decentralized to different regional offices. Most recently, I think in the last 24 hours, we have also had the Minister of Lands, Judith Nakoba, saying that even for land disputes and issues, they are still going to decentralize the Ministry of Lands and have officers in different regions. So decentralization seems to be the way to go, in consideration that while we are trying to manage the COVID-19, we're trying to manage and adhere to the SOPs in terms of movement, locality to locality, community to community, district to district. When we have this decentralization of such important offices, then we don't have to worry about the spread of COVID-19, or at least we can curb and manage it within the area code that has the high peak in terms of numbers that are getting COVID-19. Now, speaking of COVID-19, just to remind you, even if we get out of the lockdown, even if we hit 31st July and the next day is 1st August and we are free to do whatever it is that we want as Uganda, you must continuously wear your mask. You must continuously be alert that you are in a socially distanced environment. And if you can't find alternative ways of doing what you do, please, it's highly recommended now more than ever that you do exactly the alternative in terms of engaging with one person to another. If it's not an option for you, then the 2-meter distance does apply. You can do it by counting your footsteps. They give you the 2 meters and then you can have your interaction in accordance. We've seen that in public offices. We've seen that in banks where they do put stamps for feet on distance, so you stand there and another person stands in the next foot stamp, which is a good adherence and recommended. We've seen some of these are actually also in arcades being placed, foot stamps being placed in different arcades, so that would be one of the ways that you can actually control distancing and places that bring in a lot of people. But eventually you must sanitize. Sanitize. Carry yourself a sanitizer. Now it's affordable. It's a lot cheaper than Covidex, if you ask me. So buy your sanitizer and ensure that you sanitize every single time you interact with a person, a handshake, or even a surface. Now with those, we surely can survive through this COVID-19 pandemic. But away from that, nature has become nature. Nature is speaking louder these days. I don't know about you, but I hear it louder these days. Starting with the German floods that happened, and we're seeing the aftermath of it and the destruction it has caused to Germany. It's quite saddening. We also have seen, just here in Uganda at Lake Albert, the issue of the raids and the challenges across the borders in terms of fishermen and them being shot and rooted, and yet that in turn is going to affect the fishing process. So all these conversations, I am delighted to have them with Molen Kenyana. Good morning to you, Molen.
To you, Priscilla. It's good to have you back. I'm excited about today.
It's a pleasure to be here. So In regards to these German floods, they have been quite a devastation, if we can put it in words. Up to where we are right now, they have recorded over 190 deaths from just the period of the floods, which is saddening to lose people to floods with this COVID-19 that a country such as that has to deal with. But it's a challenging time. But then again, it causes me to think, what have we not done to protect nature so that it does not respond as loud as it's responding in Germany?
Yes, Priscilla, now we are looking at extreme weather events, and the floods in Germany are just adding to what we've been seeing throughout June and July. And all these are effects of climate change. It's very clear that nature is revenging back to what we've been doing over the years, over the decades. We have ignored the topic of climate change. We have ignored to declare this as not just a crisis but an emergency, and because of that we're seeing devastating effects now. The floods in Germany, and look at the wildfires also in California and northwestern USA, and then Canada. It's raging across the world, not just there. Even here in Uganda, we saw those floods in Kasese. We are still seeing drought cases across Mozambique and Madagascar. It is really a world cross crisis, and I can say that all we need is really climate action. We need to avert this crisis already, Priscilla.
Okay, all right. Well, the wildfires that you are talking about, I believe they do have a relation with the most recent increase in temperatures on the Pacific side of that continent, and that has trickled down, or the interpretation of that, we see it in the wildfires. It's saddening to see that nature is actually speaking louder than words could say, and that brings us back to the solution. What is the solution in terms of the policymakers, in terms of the organs, the bodies, the organizations that are here to, in quote, take care of nature?
Really, all we are looking at right now is the fact that temperatures are rising within the atmosphere, and we look at what is causing these temperatures to rise. Because, for example, the heat wave that we had also recently across Europe, it's not just a heat wave, and already scientists are relating this in terms of being beyond records. It's not just a heat wave. We are looking at temperatures shooting and shooting, and the root cause is basically what we're doing to our polluting our atmosphere. And the first thing is the burning of fossil fuels. If we can avoid that, if we can avoid use of fossil fuels, then we are looking at better chances in terms of climate action. That is the number one thing we have to do. Now, planting trees, that means we are creating more sinks for this carbon dioxide and most of these gases that are really contributing to the increase in temperatures. Now, that is also one of the things that we can do, but majorly we need to look at the burning of fossil fuels. And most countries that are actually using this, China is one of them. They are trying to also move to sustainable solutions, but really look at also USA. They do have, like, they are using coal a lot, and this the dangerous things that we should be avoiding for now. So once we cut down that, once we cut down the emissions in terms of how we are using these fossil fuels, we move to more sustainable ways, we move to the renewable energy, then we can look at better plans with climate actions. Priscilla.
Okay, all right. Now, you've spoken about temperatures. Yes, the heat wave, we've seen it, but we seem to have a cold wave here in Uganda. In my assessment, little as it is, the nights seem to be colder and colder by the day. What is leading to this?
Yes, we have had mostly cold spells within the country and across East Africa recently, at least the whole of July, and lucky enough we did have that forecast at the beginning of the month showing that we're going to have mostly cold weather across most areas, but also we've had more rains across especially northern Uganda, northeastern, and basically this time of the year is usually associated with these cold conditions. Also relates to the fact that we have the southern winter that's setting also at the end of June. So now what happens is that most of this cold weather from the winter effects in the southern hemisphere because like most of the pressure systems that do push winds towards their country, like over South Africa, so they do push even those cold conditions towards the country, and that is basically what also contributes to the cold weather that we have across this time of the year. And that will be shooting in at least till the end of July and also early August. We do expect at least as rains start to kick in late August, then we can look at better nights where it's more warmer. And also, Priscilla, if you have noticed, most of the days actually in Kampala, and not just Kampala, most areas, we've been waking up to really chilly weather across the country. That is still the same effects.
All right, well, Kenyana is going to be taking us through the rest of the 12 days of July and what those are going to look like in terms of climate, weather, and nature. We do have Good Morning Uganda agenda coming through your way at 8 a.m. and we're going to be looking at the closure of malls and the enforcement of SOPs. What are malls? What are kids? That confusion still lingers in people's heads. Well, today, Robert Kirabo and our guests are going to be breaking that down for you and how SOPs are actually being observed in the malls. And then later on, we're going to be having sports update, as we do have 5 days building up to Tokyo 2020. So many developing stories are coming through in the direction. One, COVID-19 and its management. You do have some of these people that are going and then disappearing thereafter. But there's so many other conversations that Ruben Pima Chividango will be bringing your way. For now, weather, nature, and climate with Molen.
Yes, a very good morning to you all once again. My name is Molen Kenyana. Now, I want to start off with taking you through our forecast that we've had for at least 10 days of July. Now, we did give this forecast just a few days ago. That was at the start of 13th, showing how we're going to be having rains across the country. And this is coming in from ICPAC, our regional center for climate outlook. Now, we did look at some of the areas that are likely to have more rainy conditions. Now, I want us to look keenly at this and see actually how these areas have been doing, especially for northern Uganda and the Karamoja region. Why you see the green colors, those are the areas that we did forecast rains to be, and even up to, actually the forecast goes up to tomorrow. We are still seeing these areas to still be in the green zone where we are likely to have more rains compared to the rest of the country. Now, that also takes in West Nile, that is the northwestern part of the country, as well as Kasese, this area along Rwenzori region. Now, you can see these are the areas where we actually have had more rains. We did have flash flooding across the Rwenzori region that is creating also those flash floods where people were evacuated from their places, and also for this extreme end of southwestern Uganda. These are the areas that we are still looking at, still in the green zone as we head towards the end of July. We also looked at most of the rains that we've had across most areas, that is the central, but take a look at the Lake Victoria Basin here, where we have Kampala, we have Wakiso, we have the western side, which has Masaka, which has Rengo. These areas have been having rains, but not compared to what we've seen across this area. So some of these forecasts when we give, we are trying to make sure that the relevant authorities try to follow up and see what is likely to be happening in terms of looking at whether these rains will be there. Then they can look at how to avert crisis, especially in the flood-prone areas, and Rwenzori is one of those. We also have our forecast for August. We will be taking a look at that. Mostly in details, we will be looking at most areas that are likely to have these rains ongoing. But for now, we want to take a look at mostly our satellite image from what we've seen over Uganda, and the weather looks like it has been mostly intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions across most areas. But for our forecast this morning, we do have Mbale, we do have Bududa, Buko, that is the eastern highlands, where we're expecting isolated showers. Those will be at 24 degrees centigrade, quite a chilly morning over there. Also for the eastern parts of Lake Victoria Basin, we are forecasting intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions, starting off with a mix of clouds and sun, and temperatures are likely to go up to 26 degrees centigrade. Quite a pleasant morning over there. Now, eastern Uganda, that is where we have Soroti, we have Katakwi, we have Amuriye and Kumi. We are forecasting isolated showers. Just 20% of this forecast area will be seeing the showers, and temperatures are at a normal 26 degrees centigrade. Looking ahead at what we have for the eastern part of Central, that is Ruwero, we have Wobulenzi, we have Bururi, we have Nakaseke. We are forecasting also isolated showers. Those will be across a few areas, and temperatures are quite high this morning. We're looking at 27 degrees centigrade across our area. Now we do have Central North, where we have Ajumani, we have Gulu, Kitgum and Padel. We are forecasting light rains. Those will be coming in later in the morning. Temperatures are likely to be at 26. Already clouds are starting to develop over that area. That will be bringing in rains over a few areas. Now that is for central part of Lake Victoria Basin, where we have Kampala, we have Mukono, we have Entebbe, Wakiso, Mpigi, Buyuko in that category. We are forecasting isolated showers. Those will be just light rains over a few areas. The rest of the area will be still having intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions, and temperatures are at a chilly 25 degrees. Now, western parts of Lake Victoria, we are forecasting sunny intervals. That is a mix of clouds and sunshine, and temperatures are likely to be at a pleasant 26 degrees Celsius. Quite a good day. You can't complain. It is worth out of the door. Now, across southwestern Uganda, that is where we have Mbarara, Ibanda, we have Bushenyi, Rubirizi in that category. We are forecasting also a mix of clouds and sunshine and quite some light winds over that area, starting off with a chilly 25 degrees centigrade, but we do expect rains to develop in the afternoon for this area, so please do look out for those. That is across southwestern part of the country. And from the satellite, we actually see the rain system is still really quite a distance from our country, but this will be moving a little bit westwards, and that is what is likely to bring us rains later in the afternoon. This system will be propagating westwards, and that could be bringing us rain still over the Rwenzori region, midwestern Uganda. Those clouds are already developing, and that will also be bringing us rains later. That is across Ntoroko, parts of Masindi. Same for the West Nile, that is across Arua. Right now, it is just intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions, but later in the afternoon, we're expecting rains. Now, take a look at Karamoja, northern Uganda. Those clouds are really developing. You can see just the white there are the clouds that are starting to develop over that region. Those will be bringing us rains late morning into the afternoon. You can expect to have those. Same for also the Mount Elgon region, which is where we have Mbale, Bududa. Also, the clouds are starting to form up. Those will be bringing us rains across the area mid-morning, and later in the afternoon we still have those coming, but most of the areas within the central region will be seeing a clearing trend, mostly into intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions. Well, that is all we can see from our satellite over Uganda, and more of the weather updates. Do please follow us on our social media handles. We are also streaming live on YouTube at UBC Television Uganda. My name is Molin Kenyana. I will be leaving you. Robert will take you through Good Morning Uganda agenda. Later we have sports updates coming up with Ruben. And don't forget Good Morning Uganda Extra, where we'll have Jagenda Semakula also coming in with more interesting stories. Have a good morning.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by was brought to you by.
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send, and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN. Kapo, you seem to be in a hurry. Where are you going to?
I'm gonna pay URA visit.
But you can access URA online. Why pay a visit?
To know more about the Kakasa Business Solutions, namely digital tracking solution, the voluntary disclosure program and electronic fiscal receipting and invoicing solution, which have turned my business around. You know I need to be on top of my game to protect my empire. If you know, you know.
I too need to know what Kapo knows.
Kakasa, be sure you are in charge of your business. Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send, and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go. MTN.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
A lovely morning to you once again, and thank you so much for keeping it on UBC TV, where we inspire Uganda, but also ensure that we give you authentic information that you need to kickstart your day, information you can trust, and of course we know your home, though day by day we are coming to the end of the 42 days and we'll wait for what next, but you must be well versed with what is happening. And this is what we do here every morning, so make it a date. 6:30, we are good to go, and you can join us to be very informed during this lockdown. Once again, I'm Robert Nyonyintono, and welcome to Good Morning Uganda Agenda. Today I'm hosting one of the men that we saw very active in implementing the SOPs, where the president made a guidance on how we can fight congestion. This is a man among the deputy residents district commissioners, that is for Kampala we have resident city commissioners. Anderson Worora, who is in charge of Nakawa division, implemented to the latter. I don't know if he's still doing the same. I remember the first 2 weeks, everything was Nakawa, do not pass there, because the RDC is on the road. That is the deputy RCC is on the road. And it was one of the places. Anderson, first and foremost, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you once again for giving me this time. Actually,
you made your area very difficult for people.
Yeah, and I have made so many enemies this lockdown, but it's all. When I was young, they used to whip us, and I thought parents either didn't like me because I was frequently beaten several times, more than others. So I thought maybe it was I wasn't liked, but I realized later that it was for my own good. So enforcing SOPs may seem harsh, rude. Sometimes we sound arrogant. You know, one can misinterpret you. Sometimes you need to understand too much someone, but there is usually a thin line in between there. for one to understand what exactly you're doing. Enforcement, like revenue collectors, they are not liked people. They can only like you if you are, you have attended to someone's rescue, you have rescued someone, or you have responded immediately to someone who is attacked. But usually, enforcement people are not people who are liked because they cause disruptions. They cause delays, they do this and that. When they interrupt you, you don't like it. But when they respond to you positively, like recently there is a prominent politician who came up and gave an account of Mulago. But if you go back and rewind back, his rhetoric is about the health sector.
That was Honorable Semujung, and after the mother was treated.
I didn't want to mention names.
No, it is public knowledge.
Yeah, so if you rewind back, which is good, by the way, it is good to be criticized. And this is where, actually, let me say this on this show. Those in government have, in most cases, made it a taboo to talk about challenges. But in actual sense, the taxpayer is a Ugandan who should be briefed timely on how far things have been done or reached, but also what are the challenges you're going through, so that you're not overstretched in demands than what you can offer. And in this is where most especially we have built the opposition to say they are the ones who talk about the challenges, even when they are there. The challenges are there.
That it should be you to talk about them.
Yeah, we should be able to talk about the challenges we are facing as a government, because the government is working on behalf of the citizens, on behalf of the people. So we should be able to timely tell them how far we have moved, how far we have not reached, and where we have not reached, and the reasons as to why we have not reached.
So let's do that regarding implementation of SOPs.
Let me put, other than making ourselves angels and thinking that we can go beyond what the public can push us for, because even if it is roads, even if it is health, even if it is education, we can only implement and go far according to what the public, the citizens have offered in terms of taxes.
Okay. Anderson Bulora, you're the Deputy Resident City Commissioner in charge of Nakawa Division. This is one of the 5 divisions that make up Kampala. Now, let's look at implementation of these SOPs. This time around, this is the second lockdown. 10 days to go. We thank the Lord, He's been faithful to us. But have we seen people complying, or has it been more resistance? What has been your assessment?
No, our complying is in terms of the results. If someone is starving, even if they dress with the most expensive suits and shirts and what, you will tell from the eyes or the face or the way they look or the way they move. You can tell that this person is starving or is sick or one way or the other. By the time we went in the lockdown, for example, Kampala was admitting 480 patients daily. At some point, all facilities were stressed. You could hear private hospitals are stressed. You could hear doctors are stressed. Everything was stressed. By then, at least every now and then, you could hear people dying. This one died. This, and we lost prominent people that time. And the most alarming bell on the road was ambulances.
Sirens, like
sirens, even private cars. Everywhere, everyone was no response. But now, if you go to hospitals, there is a hospital usually pass on while going home. You would pass there and it's like you have to, it would even create traffic between either sides of the road. But people are dropping this, people are taking out this, this patient is getting referred to another hospital and that. But the 40 days, the 30 days so far, plus the other days, were they 10? Were they how many days?
Are they 12?
Yeah, the first 12 days. Where people say it, we have registered a tremendous success in terms of COVID response, in terms of cutting the transmission cycle, in terms of people getting sick. Why? Because we are congested. With Somolago, now the numbers have dropped. Yes. There are even empty beds. Nambole, there are empty beds. Even the outcry in the society has declined tremendously. So this means that we have registered, first of all, what we would call like first aid. Because the first aid of a pandemic like this one is usually prevention. That is the best treatment of COVID. Prevention. If you can't prevent, actually this is the first pandemic we have seen that even if you have how much money, by the way, it is useless. Because we have seen prominent and rich people dying. Even those who had booked, you know, ICUs. We have seen one of the rich men here booked about 3 beds in a certain hospital. Daily paying, but with no person that in case I get a patient, they have access.
Wow.
And the news, even when he did that, out of the 6 people who were admitted, there only 1 made it. Only 1. So it means that even if you have how much money, who has more money than America? Who has more money than UK, Italy, all these European countries?
But got them to their knees.
That got them to their knees. So the first cure for this, and even why the SOPs, is prevention. And we have invested in that heavily because it saves so many people at a cost that can be valuable. You see, there are costs that I have invested in ICUs, but how many people are you going to get out of those ICUs alive? And before even that, even if you get people to the ICUs and they come out alive, someone was telling me that treating COVID after COVID, it is
effects after COVID.
Yes, effects after COVID. Leave alone the economic effects. You have lost money, you have lost a few pieces of land, you've sold this and that. But what about the damaged lungs? What about the damaged internal organs?
Actually, there are many people that survived COVID-19, and by the time of their death, they are tested negative. One of them is my good friend, that was Stephen Senfuma. It was very clear that he had recovered from COVID-19, but
the pastor.
Yeah, the pastor. But the effects of COVID is what he could not manage thereafter. So, but Anderson, having told us this successful story, and we want to thank Ugandans and the enforcement, where do we attribute the success to? Is it the enforcement bit of it, that the pressure you've mounted on Ugandans, or the fact that Ugandans have come to accept reality? Because successful enforcement is border person that putting on this helmet to protect my head, not putting on this helmet because a police officer will get me and arrest me. So where do we attribute this success?
You see, enforcement is a disruption. Telling me to put on a mask that I am not, I will see as if you are infringing, because I am not yet sick. I am okay. To me, I assume I am okay. So to make you understand is something not you achieve so easily. That to enforce, just as you hear it, enforcing. If the president had said that you go home, just like that, and there is no security presence to keep you home, it is like assuming that I have built my house, I have put in doors and what, I don't need to lock it. It's not enough. First of all, you build a house for security purposes. The security of your life, but also the property you have. But now to safeguard the property you have is another thing. Why? Because you have what others want, so they can easily take it at any time. So where you have millions of people who in the first place had politicized this, had misunderstood by calling it a white virus, a virus for the whites. We Africans, we have strong bodies, cannot manage us. Where you even had some politicians stand on a rally and say, no, it's okay. Even if you don't have a mask, you can state it's okay. That sends a message, because we pick information and believe it in it depending on who said it. Like a church priest presiding over a nikah of a Muslim family. No one will understand you. So enforcement of the SOPs, compliance, it depends on one or two things. One, the sensitization you have done. But also two, how do you enforce to make sure that even if someone has understood, they adhere to what you have said. Sometimes it is forcefully, but some other times it is willing. People.
So what has been your assessment of this second lockdown in terms of implementation of the
I think it has been a two-way. One, after getting a few cases of deaths, people complied. But the Baganda sent kumbaga tikula musiufu. There are usually those people who are reluctant. There are those people who will, blink and take things. Like recently, 2 weeks into the lockdown, we found out somewhere in Ruzida where people were hiding, like in, these floating islands. They had put there a mobile low disco, like about 200 of them drinking. Where have all these 200 people come from? Different places. You can't say that you are drinking, merrymaking, and you're observing SOPs. The other challenge we have is trust. This is my wife. I am going to see my girlfriend. We are all media journalists. So even when we are talking, there is no need to have put on my mask. I will come and whisper. I will shake your hands easily. I will hug you, because there is that familiarity. And to keep around everyone is not easy. But if someone there is a security presence, one is or there is a vigilant person within. So the second lockdown has had a beacon of a few different things that has helped us to comply. Even those who are forcing themselves into the city center, at least you see them, they come with a mask. At least they have a mask. In the first lockdown, I personally camped at Nakawa Market. I would camp there for almost an hour or two every day to enforce compliance. Some big person will come and we want to enter the market without washing hands, without putting on a mask, without observing these SOPs. And I would be there, all I would tell is the policeman, take that one. And 2, 3, 4 times, why? Because the chairman of the market will be reluctant, or he will be even underlooked. Yeah, he will be underlooked. The policeman also will get tired, but we would get like 20 days. Of course, we would release them later, but to show them that you have no leeway to do whatever you want at any time. We were at some supermarket. I follow media category, not mentioning businesses, but a big man came in an SUV, new car, very smart, but he wants to force himself into a market, into a supermarket. Yes. So the guard is telling him, please wash hands, wash or sanitize. There is an option. Me, I always prefer washing hands than sanitizing. So said, who are you?
I'm going to bring in millions into this business.
I can even close this supermarket. So the guy said, if you are closing a supermarket for telling you to wash hands, I was closed, like I had the packet closed there. So I got out, helped the guy, and said, you are going to wash hands or you are going to go back. Choose the two. You can't be this exposed as we think, and you are ignorantly behaving in public. So he got insulted. Went back into the car and left. But the guard told me later that he came back and even actually apologized. So enforcement sometimes
is
vital because the presence alone, it gives morale. Actually, security and enforcement is a morale. I was tired of putting on a mask from maybe a kilometer away. I'm tired. I think I should put it. Then someone has to morale boost you again.
So you see presence
is morale boosting.
I love that. Presence, security presence is morale.
It gives you morale to go back to what you had.
Not fear that instigates you to comply.
Of course, fear sometimes is also morale.
Okay, Anderson, well said about enforcement. You've given us that there were a bit of challenges because some people, like you've said, maybe it's only presidency, but also the second wave you mentioned of how it hurt people because they were now seeing people being buried here and there. So there was that kind of, but let's also look at enforcement has something to do with poverty levels and difficulties of families that they are going through. So how have you managed to create the balance? I often pass by your office and I've seen a couple of people who come asking for aid. I say, Ngenda RDC Anderson, what are you going to do there?
Now, of course it is challenging and I wish sometimes I see these MPs underlooking RDCs. And not recognizing their contribution to society. But in such cases, we have so many families to take care of. If you want to get a vulnerable group today, go to the RDC. If you want to know the most challenged person today in this pandemic, go to the RDC. By nature of the job, you cannot run away from people. You have to be present. You are a resident in the people. You are a resident economically, you are a resident socially, you are a resident politically, but also on a personal level. The RDC is the only office, not the only, like RDC sometimes are social doctors. Everyone, RDC's office is the only office where people don't come for jazz, for conversation. Everyone who knocks at your door has issues. Everyone has issues, personal, business, political, this and that.
So now I want to focus more at this economic aspect because I've seen it. I often go to the RDC, the Resident City Commission of Machindi. I come to your office sometime on certain issues, but this is the element I want you to bring out clear.
So
how are you handling this?
That's what I was building. So in such a pandemic, people will always come to you. And you see, usually, it is shameful for someone to come with the whole of that hope that when they were DC, jakufuna kilo ya kaunga.
And they truly get this because I've seen you do that. I've seen that of my.
And sometimes it is emotional.
Okay.
Like someone will come, even cry, kneel, and say, "Sina walala jendaga. I can't go anywhere else. Help me." So sometimes we personally handle these issues on a personal level. Now, leave alone the title and the job. That's why sometimes we want some elevation of the office. And how can someone cry before you and you have 20,000 I don't give them? It is hard. So now, but sometimes we have well-wishers. Or we have these people who who you can call say Nyonyintono nomuntere kilo 5 za kawunga ali bubi afa ondetera ya kilo 10 or you find a way, because one of the ways through which you can lead people is by giving them hope. Most especially in challenging times like these ones. There is no way you can be a hopeless person and you lead people. You have to always find means. Like in this lockdown, I don't know how much money, my personal money, okay, now I'm talking about my salary, that I don't know how much I have taken home. Why? I cannot find you starving, you cannot come to me starving. I'm not saying this that I'm inviting everyone to come. But at least this is a discussion we should have as a country to understand. And then we pick and run away from the constituents. Actually, some of them, the next day after the election, they shifted. They left. These are
but for you must be present in
no, you must be, you are a resident. You must be there. I cannot afford, I am here now, but my phone is ringing. People are saying, tugenda kuzikoliwa. This phone starts ringing at 4. Anytime where someone gets a problem, first thing that comes to their mind, security I want to go for burial. So I cannot afford to be away from the station even a day, even half a day.
Anderson, let's now also look at another
By the way,
issue.
before
while we are still, no, it's the same issue that I'm asking about. We saw yesterday that is the Minister for Information and National Guidance, Dr. Chris Badiomos. He said politicians should not distribute food. They should bring all this aid they are willing to give to the RDC's office because he has the district task force. How are you going to handle this? Because we know, first and foremost, your offices are densely populated. Every office of the RDC, I want to tell you, for Kampala, there are RCCs. But you find there is already a line of people, a queue, looking for services. How are you going to run this? Suppose I want to give maybe to my workers. Where should I come?
Now, the plight I was trying to take you through is not mine alone. Even all of my colleagues go through the same thing. You said you go to Makindi. You go. Ask him what he's going through. Now, the issue of bringing food to the task force is in 2 folds. One is to make sure you may not have capacity to manage. I saw someone who did a very good thing, but in a shabby way. Gave so many people, but he brought them together. That was very good and bad. I can come for food and I lose life. Now, in communities, you may not have enough expertise and capacity to neutralize or manage the public. Because if you bring food in a playground, for example, you can say in a social distancing, but how will you control people who are coming and they are not supposed to get? How will you manage? So it will either end in tears by fighting for the little you have brought, because you have not well managed. But secondly, is how do we ensure that you are doing this in good spirit? Yes, everything by there is in a good spirit, but how do you execute it at the end of it? If you give, actually you don't even have to bring food to the RDC. All you need to do is inform them and say, in Ichiwatule, you want to give people food there. Can you help us? Because the task force is composed of technical people. It has security, it has medical people, it has politicians. If you coordinate it properly, you will end up successfully executing it. But if you do it alone, you will end up infesting people. And remember, our primary capacity that everyone can handle is prevention. That is the primary capacity that everyone has. If we lose that capacity, we have lost everything. Now, you as Nyonyintono, all you will want to say is nalisemere. How you come is none of my business. Now, for me, I am interested in both the food and how That is why the emphasis on making sure that the task force is involved. Because, you see, you can easily, Nyonyintono, one person can finish a family.
Very true.
In Butambala, a friend was telling me that there is a family that vanished completely. The father, the mother, and 3 children all died. Why? Because the father misbehaved, went out, brought the virus at home, infested everyone. Everyone died. Another family, only one was fighting back for life. Actually, that girl who is in S2 had been relocated to Molago. To save one, the rest have died.
That is all.
So when we talk about community transmission, when we talk about that, we ensure that we don't want people to, convert, gather. It is as the result that one person can easily finish. There is this advert I usually saw on TV, that one person can easily infest 406 or 60 people in 1 month.
Anderson,
but one person can infest about 15 people if they ensured social distancing.
In the interest of time, Anderson, still we've looked at the enforcement and the relief. We know it is very hard to enforce people whose stomachs are really in a very hungry person. Enforcing could be hard. Briefly, let's talk about the Nabanjamani in Nakawa division. As the RDC, how successful has this process been? 10 days left to go. I know of places where a whole zone, only 2 people got this money. And we know, of course, this was a bit of hope. You talked about hope initially, that you can't be a leader and you're not giving people hope. So when you talk about hope, this is one of the avenues of hope that Ugandans had, and we believe more so in Nakawa. So how successful has this exercise been?
The exercise itself, being digital, had issues. Issues that are not related to government. The delays, yes. Because government provided money and said you come. I told you, Nyonyintono, come with your ID. You came with an ID of Anderson, not your ID. Because Anderson is your relative, so you chose, what am I meaning? That when I registered in Nyonyintono, Nyonyintono has to have 3 things. 1, a national ID. 2, a telephone number, but bearing your names. You remember a campaign, I think 3 years ago, where we are telling people register, your SIM cards, correct your details, your particulars, have your ID, reading your national ID, your telephone number, all synced. And people said, you people, that is insecurity. You see, everything, it takes 2 to tango. So we had people who registered Nyonyintono, but their SIM cards are reading Anderson. Now, for accountability purposes, you could not pass through the system. The system would discard you. Now, who is to blame there? Is it government, or is it you who gave mismatching information? Now, that is 1. 2, there are people who registered more than 1 time. He's in border, but also he went and registered some in the village. And also went, so that he doesn't miss. And by good or bad luck, all names went through. Now, if the system detects that Nyonyintono has registered 3 times, it discards because it doesn't know exactly to pick. So who is to blame there? Is it government or is it you? Others provided information that was, I am Nyonyintono, but I registered my son. You get it? I registered my son to be the beneficiary. So that one also discarded you. So one has 3 SIM cards in different networks. He registered all of them in MTN, in Airtel. The system discards you. So
this is sensitization that you did not give people maybe prior, that if you're going to register, this and this is what should be done.
We gave this information, but I don't know how long we should have given this information before we roll it out. There is usually people will create their myths in their heads, their illusions, and make them reality. That even if you tell them this, they will go on to do something else. Some other challenges came as because this data was manually entered into the system. So the data entrants also, there is a possibility that they could do, instead of pressing 0, they press 9 on the keyboard. Or instead of pressing Moses, they write Mose. And your SIM card comes as Moses, but the system has Mose, which would also cause some issues in the system. Because the primary thing in the systems we used was to make sure that there is proper accountability. If it is Nyonyintono who has been submitted, let it be Nyonyintono.
So Anderson, in brief, does then this, with these complications you've mentioned, does it then serve the purpose?
Yeah, it does, because we are learning from the experience.
If you're not reaching a number of the targeted audience, I'll give an example. There is a village, unfortunately this is not in Nakawa, that I know, and this village could be having about maybe 500 vulnerable people that would be qualifying. But so far, I'm reliably informed, only 9 have received this money.
You see, this
so
money,
does it then, doesn't that befit the purpose?
Initially, this fund was supposed to benefit 500,000 people. It was not meant to benefit everyone, but it was there to benefit the most vulnerable. Though some tend to take it as a poverty alleviation program for not to live. But there are people, for example, have you seen a taxi? Ever since we're into day 31. Day 31, yes, today is 19th. It means there are people who are more vulnerable. At least
and what happens when in the more vulnerable, still because of the technicalities involved, they're still going to miss out?
Yeah, I mean, you see here, if you're drowning in a lake, even if you see a serpent, you want to cling on it, even if you know that it can beat you. So in this time we are trying to do in a crisis, what can you do to save 1, 2, 3 people? You may not reach everyone. Even those you reach, you may not be able to be of benefit to them. But you are trying to make sure that at least Uganda bakuita kuwa manta. They know one manta ko no kola chosobode. Some people tend to think that government can have capacity that is more than its people.
Anderson, let me have your final remarks. I see Ruben is roaming up to take us through sports updates.
Yes, my final submission, I will keep referring to the Uganda proverb. They always say that that you can come from far, but you lose it towards, the shores. We are into day 41, to day 31 of the lockdown. It does not mean that we relax. Even if the lockdown is lifted, the SOPs will not be lifted. They should remain your personal protection, your armor. They should be your armor that you use on a daily basis. Even if there is no enforcement, even if there is no one to remind you, this should re-echo in your minds every now and then, that prevention, actually in this case, is not better than a cure, it is the best you can have. The discussions of ICU beds, what and what, the vaccination will come, but it has to find you when you are alive and safe. This is just a booster, an addition, a morale booster, as I like calling it. But first of all, safeguard yourself, safeguard your family, safeguard your friends, safeguard your neighbors. That's the only way you can be safe. If they are not safe, you're not safe.
Well, I want to thank you, Anderson Burora, who is the Deputy Resident City Commissioner in charge of Nakawa Division. Do it for yourself, not for the police officer, not for the RDC, not for the president. Do it for yourself, because at the end of the day, it protects you and your loved ones. As government tries all other avenues, the primary thing we can do is perfect the SOPs. Have a lovely day. Stay safe. God bless you. Let me leave you with Ruben Pima, take you through the world of sports. Till tomorrow.